to persuade them or influence them, then we have to present an argument from their point of view that makes sense to them. Not from our point of view, but from their point of view. And this is where, when we begin to use these models to deal with other people, then this shows the ultimate respect. Now, the issue always comes up, and for those of you that are green, and you know who you are, that those of you then are always going, wait a minute, this is manipulation. That's bad, negative, bad word. We don't like manipulation. We don't like to be manipulated. We don't like to manipulate other people. Okay, so there's several answers to this question. So, one, you can't help but influence other people. If you do nothing, that's going to influence them. So the only real question is not whether you're going to influence or not. On one level, if I want to be crass, not whether you're going to manipulate or not. The question is to what end or for what purpose. So this is where knowing your outcome and relating to another human being, and if we're in communication with ourselves or parts of ourselves or another human being, then what is our outcome in that circumstances? The next question is the outcome a win-win or a win-lose? Is the outcome a win-win or a win-lose? That's the ultimate question. And if it's a win-lose, then that's the negative side of manipulation, and we would agree that that's not good, because win-lose turns into lose-lose, and you end up having to deal with the 3 R's of remorse, recrimination, and revenge. So we don't want the negative side, but what is the positive side? The positive side is we respect another human being enough to take the time to understand their model of the world and to present what we want to present. It makes sense in terms of their model. Now, that's the real value of these patterns, because it shows the ultimate respect we can have for another person, that we took the time to understand their model, to understand how they think, to look at the world from their perspective, to walk in their moccasins, to look at the world through their glasses, to see how they understand it, and then to try to figure out, okay, if somebody understands it that way, and this is what I wanted them to do, how can I get that to make sense in terms of their model? That's what it all boils down to. That's what it all comes down to. Okay, so we'll keep coming back to these patterns as we go on. And once again, these are patterns. They're not 100%. There are regularities. They're probabilistic. Okay, next thing. Once again, to emphasize, behavior is a response to environment. Okay, so where do these patterns come from? Where do these patterns come from in our personality? So, listen carefully. Many of these patterns are arbitrary coping mechanisms developed in childhood, then reinforced through time. So when we were a child's mind lacking a developed cortex makes many false to facts judgments about the world, has many misunderstandings that as adults hopefully we begin to fill in. So if something happens to us when we're a child, usually a lot of these patterns form between the ages of 4 and 6. And what happens is something happens to us and we respond in a certain way by accident. There weren't a lot of choices. We simply did that. Situation comes up again, and what do? We repeat what we did the first time. Once we've done it once, then it's easy to do it again. Once we do it several times, it becomes a habit. It becomes a habit. So we don't need to think about it. You see, one of the characteristics of human beings that's amazing, we've got a thing called an unconscious mind. And what does the unconscious mind do? It operates in such a way that it doesn't require us to think about things. We just unconsciously do them. It's much more efficient that way to be able to operate, although frequently we may make mistakes. And so, but all of us are this. This is we're creatures of habit. We simply follow habits, and we've got habits of personality. We've got habits of personality. And then we identify with them, and we go, that's me, that's me. That's the dangerous movement, when we go, that's me. And then we begin to think that's what's most uniquely us. that we can't be anything else, and that's me. That's me. And I'm either proud of being me, or there are times I may not be proud, but that's me. So what happens is, you see, what we think of this thing as me. This is a big point. What you think of this thing as me is simply an arbitrary coping mechanism. It was an accident of something that happened to you as a child. And you've grown up reinforcing it and reinforcing it. It's not you. It's a pattern of behavior, a habit you developed as a child. But then you adopted it. You identified with it. You accepted it. And you think that that's what's most uniquely you. So most people, what they think of most uniquely them were simply then accidents. They were accidents of your birth, of your circumstances, of your pre-programming, of your enculturation, of your parents, of the environment you're raised in, of the accidental things that happened to you when a child that started triggering these responses. And once they're there, and they're usually set up by the time you're 6 years old, the rest of your life is just a process of going ahead and reinforcing those. But then we step in, we take pride, we say, that's me. So one of the things we're inviting you to do, and this may seem strange, bizarre, and it may be difficult, and we're going to try to help you with your difficulties. Evan has certain ways of assisting people to make changes, even when they don't necessarily want to. But the fact you're here, in fact, let's just get that square from the beginning. How many of you are willing to change? If not, okay, how many of you are